Every war has a beginning, but the Trojan War began long before any man touched a sword. It began in a dream, in a whisper, in a prophecy that crawled from the mouth of fate itself. This is not the story taught in classrooms. This is the story carved into the bones of history, carried by poets, feared by kings, and mourned by a civilization that vanished into ash. On a storm-heavy night in the palace of Troy, Queen Hecuba dreamed she held her newborn son in her arms. But the child was not a child. Her arms burned with the weight of a blazing torch, a living flame that grew and stretched and swallowed the city whole. Nothing survived. Not the palace, not the walls, not the people, only fire. The king called for an oracle. The answer arrived without hesitation. The newborn prince, Paris, would one day bring the destruction of Troy, a child born under a curse, a life shaped by doom. To save the city, Paris was left upon the slopes of Mount Ida, left to the cold, to the wild, to the will of gods. But fate does not surrender its chosen. A shepherd found the child, weeping in the silence of dawn, and raised him as his own. Paris grew under open skies, never knowing he was a prince or a prophecy. But destiny does not forget, and one day, 3 goddesses appeared before him: Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, not in thunder, not with armies, but as visions woven from divine radiance. They demanded he choose the fairest. Hera promised kingdoms. Athena promised triumph and wisdom. Aphrodite promised the love so powerful it would reshape the world. Paris chose love, and by choosing love, he chose destruction. In Sparta lived Helen, a queen wrapped in beauty so radiant that poets called her divine. But beneath the myth was a woman, caught in a marriage of politics, and a life carved by expectation. Paris entered her world like a spark drifting into dry grass. Their meeting was destiny, their union a catalyst. When Paris sailed away with Helen, the world shifted. Sparta stirred. Menelaus trembled with humiliation. Agamemnon saw opportunity. Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, did not simply seek to retrieve Helen. He sought dominion, and so he summoned the kings of Greece. Odysseus came with reluctance. Ajax came with loyalty. Nestor came with wisdom aged by decades. And then there was Achilles, young, brilliant, unstoppable, a storm wearing the skin of a man. At Aulis, the horizon vanished behind sails. 1,000 ships, their masts rising like a forest of determination. No ancient army had ever moved with such force. This was not revenge. This was ambition disguised as honor. Troy stood untouched above the sea, rich, proud, adorned in gold and cedar. Its walls, built by legendary hands, made the city appear immortal. When the Greek fleet approached, Troy did not tremble. It stood in silence, as if fate was already known. The war lasted a decade, but not as legends claim. Not endless duels, not constant battle. It was a siege of pride, 2 worlds refusing to bend. The real Troy knew diplomacy, negotiation, trade interference, political tension, but myth turned years into poetry. In the Greek camp, pride sparked a new disaster. Achilles felt dishonored by Agamemnon, and a wounded ego can wound an entire army. I was born for greatness, not for chains. While Greek unity fractured, Troy found strength in one man, Hector, a prince who fought not for pride, but for peace. If I fall, Troy falls with me. A single tragedy summoned Achilles back to destiny. He returned to the field not for glory, but for grief. His presence alone reshaped the war. In one of history's most human moments, old King Priam walked alone into the Greek encampment to speak to the man who had taken everything from him. I come to you, not as a king, but as a father. When strength and pride failed, the Greeks turned to cunning. Odysseus whispered a plan, not of battle, but of illusion. As Troy opened its gates, the The final act of destiny began. The city that once stood untouched for centuries now entered its final dawn. The fall of Troy was not just the end of a city, but the end of an age. Archaeology reveals layers of Troy burned, rebuilt, and burned again. Historians see a century of conflict compressed into one story. But legends endure because they speak truth, not of events, but of humanity. The Trojan War survives because its lessons survive. That pride destroys nations. That love reshapes destinies. That choices echo longer than empires. And that even the greatest city can fall if its people forget humility.